I am Jonathan Turner. This is my project on contemporary business leaders at Grand Canyon University, College of Business, in Management 420 with Professor Plouffe. The leaders that I've interviewed and researched are Sean and Mr. Jack Welch. Sean is currently serving in the U.S. Army. He is a pre-ranger instructor and was previously a 6th Ranger Training Battalion instructor at Ranger School. He has 13 years of being a leader, or was a leader since 2013. He's been a team leader, a squad leader, a platoon sergeant, and a first sergeant. Mr. Jack Welch was the CEO of General Electric from 1981 through 2001 and is credited with being one of the best to ever be a CEO. Their experience, motivation, and demeanor are what separated them from being good and great leaders. The ability of Sean to be honest with himself, take constructive criticism, and grow is what led me to interview him. And finally, Mr. Welch. He recognized the importance of choosing the right people because everyone needs to be in a specific role based on their personality, work ethic, and motivation. Sean's leadership style is based around the trait theory. His emotional stability and emotional intelligence sets the leadership presence for him. He creates an open and inviting environment which allows employees to share their ideas, goals, potential solutions. This creates innovation and confidence in the workplace for those employees. Finally, he continually changed and perfected his teaching and leadership style to fit whatever environment, in this case, a student instructor environment. Mr. Jack Welch's leadership theory is known as the transactional leadership. As McGraw-Hill defined it, he focused on clarifying the employee's role and task requirements. He set up those left and right limits, and he had a huge impact from his level all the way down to the lower employee level. He categorized employees into 3 levels, the top performers being in the 20% and the best people, the 70% of the majority of employees, and the bottom 10%, who, in his words, must go. The greatest achievement for Sean was the overcoming of being humbled and not necessarily being greeted with open arms when he got to 6th Ranger Battalion. Eventually, he would become the instructor of the cycle and instructor of the year there, but it took being humbled and a lot of constructive criticism. He displayed discipline and a unity of direction or foresight. He always had the mission statement and organization's goals in mind, and he used influence in the form of scarcity. So earning that Ranger tab was the goal of all the students. As an instructor who had already attained that goal, that was the ability for him to use his influence to motivate and increase that perceived value of the actual Ranger tab. He initially started at the 6th Ranger Battalion with the same attitude and personality he had carried over from being in a regular infantry line unit. He started with kind of more of a cocky and rude, impatient demeanor towards the students, who immediately gave him feedback through end-of-course critiques, telling him that he didn't really know the material. He was just being impolite and not creating a good learning environment. From those critiques and the criticism of the students as well as his peers, he changed and he used more empathy and a lot more learning and working with students to become that most valuable instructor for the cycle as well as the year. He used expert power by sharing with those students real world scenarios that the tactics and training that they're learning would help them to better be in that role, as well as the actual experience of being at that school and earning that accomplishment that they are working towards. He initially used legitimate power in a negative way, just acting more of a know-it-all and becoming frustrated with his employees or peers and students that didn't necessarily perform the way he wanted them to, without initially giving them any benefit of the doubts, constructive criticism, or feedback. It eventually became positive after seeing the caliber of individuals that he was working with. He was used to being somewhat better, and that put him into a more complacent spot. So once he got to Ranger Training Battalion, it was such a wake-up call for him to get better and be a better instructor. He learned that the ways of his old unit and how he treated those employees would not be beneficial in this instructor-student environment. To compare the leadership styles of Sean as well as Mr. Welch, we can see that Sean uses more of an appeal of emotion and he is a little more humble. After this experience, he understood that everyone's got something that's probably better than someone else at, and he now gives multiple opportunities and second chances to his current employees. He creates that open environment, and he, just like Mr. Welch, believes in a strict, detailed evaluation system. Within the Army, this evaluation system is in place and it details what must go into it, what must be defined, and what job scope is given to each employee. In Mr. Welch's company, General Electric, as he was the leader, he assigned each manager or person in a leadership role to make their own evaluation system. He created more of a candor or blunt work environment where he wanted leaders, managers, and workers alike to kind of call out or ensure that everyone was upholding a standard that would make the entire organization be better. It was very blunt and it was very clearly defined as right and wrong. each year. In that bottom 10% that had to go, as he stated, he would lay off those employees. It created an environment that some employees would be scared of potentially messing up, and so it wasn't as open as what Sean creates to do on a daily basis. The strengths and weaknesses of Mr. Welch. As I stated before, he built a culture of candor. It's a double-edged sword. Yes, people are upholding a standard and making sure others do as well. They're being blunt and honest. In today's society, it's not working as well, and it's a lot more inclusive and emotional driven. His engagement with employees was phenomenal. He did daily workouts where he would invite or require about 30 to 100 employees to gather around, and the managers or leaders would not be present, and the employees got to bring up issues that they saw within the company. From that, he would make those managers and leaders of the designated department create an action plan to solve at least 75% of the issues within the week, and then the remaining 25% within the month. His hiring process was very in-depth because he believed that everyone had a certain role to play. He was known to send new up-and-coming graduates who had a lot of potential in others' eyes to places that General Electric didn't have a huge footprint or a huge store or company at. There were a couple examples of him sending people to India as well as Australia prior to there being any big stores there. His weaknesses: he created kind of a cutthroat culture that led to snitching on each other and fear of job security. It gave off an appearance of lack of empathy. For Sean, his strengths are inclusion and second chances, making sure everyone has a voice and they know that they can speak without being disrespected or scoffed. A weaknesses is that being too kind can be perceived as a leader that's kind of a pushover, and then putting too much trust or too broad of left and right limits on employees can lead to complacency and confusion. Lessons learned from Mr. Welch is he was described as insatiably curious by an executive search consultant Claudio Herreros. He ensured that GE's mission statement was simple and measurable. He said each department will be in the top 2 of the business that they operate in. So he matched that mission statement to an entrepreneurial goal. And finally, he worked with a high tolerance of ambiguity because he was known as a risk taker. And when you're handling that much money and that many employees, there's always uncertainty, and he knew that. Leadership lessons learned from Sean is to foster an engaging, open work environment and be professional in order to support your reputation as well as your presence. And finally, that leadership styles do not always translate to every situation. What he learned and what he executed on the line, he had to change and only take certain things from it in order to be one of the best instructors. Behaviors to demonstrate as a leader is you have to be able to perform at the same level or better that you expect for your subordinates. Ensure that there is not fear or complete arrogance that people feel who are working for you. So you need to balance that fine line of being strict and not being a pushover. And finally, to demonstrate is to hold everyone accountable for their actions. A behavior you want to avoid as a leader is do not take that accountability or that condor attitude as people attacking you and making it personal. The reflections I have for this project is that Mr. Welch and Sean have very different leadership techniques. And that's why I chose these two leaders that lessons learned to effectively lead from Mr. Welch and Sean is that no one is too good for any job, especially a new job, and it is up to that individual to have the discipline and motivation to effectively change what they need to be successful. Next, the mindset you exhibit is infectious and always seen by your employees, your peers, and your leaders. Finally, to always be curious and never stop learning. And these are my references. Thank you.